On the morning Nkiru forgot her mother's face, the landlord arrived to collect another month's rent. He stood outside her apartment in a spotless white shirt. He carried no receipt book. He asked for no money. Behind Nkiru hung a framed family photograph. She recognized her father. She recognized her younger brother. But the smiling woman standing beside them looked like a complete stranger. Nkiru pointed toward the photograph with trembling fingers. "Who is that woman?" she asked. The landlord glanced at the picture and then looked back at her. His expression remained calm. "Madam Nkiru," he said, "your rent is becoming expensive." Months earlier, she would never have believed that a beautiful apartment could steal a person's life without taking a single naira. Nkiru Okafor arrived in Lagos with one suitcase, 2 pairs of office shoes, and a promise to herself. She would not return home defeated. She had recently secured a job as a junior marketing assistant on Victoria Island. The salary looked impressive in the employment email, but Lagos had a way of making impressive salaries look very small. Transport swallowed a large part of her income. Food took another part. After everything was calculated, there was almost nothing left for accommodation. Every morning, Nkiru woke before sunrise and joined thousands of tired workers rushing toward the city. Every night, she returned to the narrow sofa in her friend Bissie's apartment. After work, Nkiru searched for a place of her own. One agent showed her a room with a leaking ceiling and a bathroom shared by 6 people. Another showed her a tiny apartment beside a roaring generator. The rent was 1 million naira. Nkiru laughed because she thought the agent was joking. He was not. Another agent proudly showed her a room where the cooking area stood inside the bathroom. He called it affordable and modern. But the landlord demanded 2 years, rent in advance, along with agency fees, legal fees, caution fees, and several other charges that seemed to appear from nowhere. Nkiru left without saying goodbye. That night, Bissie sat beside her on the sofa. She explained that her younger sister would be arriving the following week. Nkiru understood what that meant. She could not continue sleeping there. She checked her account balance again, hoping the number had somehow changed. It had not. Then her phone vibrated. A new advertisement had appeared in a Lagos housing group. It promised a beautiful 1-bedroom apartment, constant water, reliable electricity, no agency fee and no caution fee. The final line made Nkiru sit upright. It said, "No rent required." Bissie looked over her shoulder. "That is either a scam," she said, "or a church." Nkiru called the number. A calm male voice answered immediately. He invited her to inspect the apartment the following afternoon. Nkiru asked how much the rent would cost. The man answered, "We do not collect money." When she asked what they collected instead, he paused, then he said, "Only what the house requires." Next afternoon, Nkiru arrived at number 17, Ajanaku Close in Surulere. The street was unusually quiet. At the center of the compound stood a tall cream-colored building with polished windows and dark wooden balconies. There was no estate sign, no security guard, no sound from a generator. The gate opened before she touched it. A tall man stepped outside. He looked to be in his late 50s, although his face was strangely smooth. He wore a spotless white shirt, dark trousers, and brown leather sandals. He introduced himself as Mr. Afalian, the manager of the property. Then he invited Nkiru inside. The apartment was better than anything Nkiru had inspected. The floors were polished. The bedroom was spacious. The kitchen was clean. The taps worked. The electricity was steady. And the balcony overlooked the city. Nkiru walked through the rooms in disbelief. Then she asked again, "How much is the rent?" Mr. Afalian stood near the living room window. He told her that the house had been built for people who needed another chance. Then he explained the price. She would not pay with money. At the end of every month, the house would take one memory. Nkiru stared at him, waiting for him to laugh. He did not. Mr. Afalian placed an old brass key on the kitchen counter. He told her she could leave and continue searching. Or she could move in that very night. Nkiru looked around the beautiful apartment. It was safe, clean, and close to her office. She convinced herself that his strange warning was only a joke. Then she picked up the key. Before we continue, imagine that this offer was made to you, a beautiful apartment, no rent, no agency fee, no yearly payment. But the house would take one treasured memory from you every month. Would you accept the key? Tell us your answer in the comments. And tap the like button before we discover what the apartment took from Nkiru first. For the first few weeks, Nkiru's life improved. She stopped waking before dawn. She arrived at work early. Her manager noticed her effort. She began saving money, preparing proper meals and buying better clothes. Online, she posted beautiful photographs of her new home. Her friends wanted to know how she had found such an apartment. During a video call, Bissy asked how Nkiru had found the place. Nkiru smiled and answered, "Grace." Bissy looked at the polished floor and expensive furniture behind her. Then she replied, "Grace does not usually come with polished floors in Lagos." Nkiru laughed, but the apartment was not as peaceful as it appeared. At night, soft footsteps moved through the hallway. Sometimes the walls seemed to whisper. One evening, Nkiru heard a child laughing inside her wardrobe. When she opened it, there was nothing there. She called Mr. Afalian the next morning. He simply said, "Some things age on the inside." The final night of the month, Nkiru dreamed of her childhood. She was 8 years old, running beneath heavy rain with her best friend, Chika. They slipped in the mud, laughed until their stomachs hurt, and returned home soaked. Nkiru's mother stood in the doorway, pretending to be angry while hiding a smile. It was one of Nkiru's happiest memories. Then the rain stopped. The color drained from the street. A dark doorway appeared in the air and slowly opened. Something unseen began pulling the memory toward it. Nkiru tried to hold Chika's hand. She shouted her friend's name. But the street, the rain, and Chika's laughter disappeared into the darkness. Nkiru woke suddenly. Her room was cold. From beneath the floor came the faint sound of glass ringing. The next morning, Chika called to wish her a happy new month. Nkiru stared at the name on her phone. She answered and asked, "Who is this?" There was a long silence. Chika believed Nkiru was joking. But Nkiru could not remember her. There was no rain, no childhood street, and no shared friendship inside her mind. Later that morning, Mr. Afalian knocked on her door. He calmly announced that her first payment had been received. That was when Nkiru finally understood. The agreement had been real. Nkiru packed her suitcase and prepared to leave. Then her manager called. Her campaign proposal had been approved, and she was being considered for promotion. Nkiru looked around the apartment. Leaving meant returning to agents, traffic, and uncertainty. She told herself that the house had taken only one memory. "One more month," she whispered. The apartment lights flickered in response. Nkiru began paying attention to the other tenants. Mr. Bello, a retired teacher, often stood outside his apartment looking confused. One evening, he asked Nkiru if she knew where he lived. A stylish tenant named Said called Nkiru by a different name every week, and Femi spent hours staring at old family photographs he could no longer understand. One night, Nkiru found Femi crying in the stairwell. He held a photograph of a woman carrying a baby. He said, "I know she mattered to me, but I don't know who she is." When Nkiru asked why he had not left, Femi answered, "Every time I decide to leave, I forget where I plan to go." The end of the second month, Nkiru dreamed of her university graduation. She wore her gown proudly. Her mother danced beside her. Her father wiped tears from his eyes. Her younger brother shouted her name. Then the dark doorway appeared again. This time, Nkiru knew exactly what was about to happen. She tried to run, but her feet would not move. The graduation hall faded. Her family's faces disappeared. Her certificate vanished into the darkness. When Nkiru woke, the framed certificate still hung on her wall. She could read her name. But she could not remember attending university. Nkiru confronted Mr. Afalian and announced that she was leaving. She reached the compound gate. But the moment she stepped outside, she forgot Bissy's address. She forgot the names of the agents she had contacted. She even forgot which neighborhoods she had planned to visit. Behind her, Mr. Afalian said, "The house protects its tenants from homelessness." Nkiru turned toward him. "It does not protect them," she said. "It traps them." From that moment, she began watching the landlord carefully. On the first night of every month, Mr. Afalian disappeared through a locked door behind the staircase. Nkiru had assumed it was a storage room. Now she believed the truth was hidden behind it. One night, when the building was silent, Nkiru opened the lock with a hairpin. Behind the door was a narrow staircase descending underground. The air smelled of damp earth and old perfume. With her phone light trembling in her hand, Nkiru followed the staircase into darkness. At the bottom was a hidden chamber filled with hundreds of glowing glass bottles. Inside each bottle moved a memory. A child taking her first steps, a wedding celebration, a father teaching his son to ride a bicycle, a mother singing to her baby, friends laughing beside the ocean. The chamber was filled with stolen lives. Every bottle carried a tenant's name and a date. Nkiru found Mr. Bello's wedding day. She found the face of Said's mother. She found Femi's forgotten family. Then she discovered a shelf carrying her own name. One bottle held Chica's laughter in the rain. Another held her graduation ceremony. The apartment had taken pieces of their lives and stored them inside glass bottles. Now imagine that only one memory could be returned to you. Which memory would you save? Your happiest childhood day, the voice of someone you loved, or the moment that made you proudest? Share your answer in the comments. Hold on to your memories by tapping like, subscribing to Twilight Tales of Africa, and turning on the notification bell before we continue. Nkiru reached for the bottles. Before her fingers touched the glass, Mr. Afalian spoke from behind her. You should not be here. Turned and demanded to know why he was stealing people's lives. Mr. Afalian insisted that he was only collecting what the tenants had agreed to surrender. He explained that his family had once welcomed travelers who had nowhere to sleep. But as Lagos changed and prices rose, his parents borrowed money to keep their home open. They eventually lost everything. His mother died begging for more time. His father died believing that kindness had destroyed them. Mr. Afalian had learned a cruel lesson. People would surrender their past to protect their comfort. Nkiru accused him of punishing desperate strangers for his family's pain. Then she asked how the memories could be returned. Mr. Afalian revealed that the house would release nothing unless every tenant chose to leave at the same time. The building survived on agreement. As long as even one person remained, the contract would continue. The next morning, Nkiru gathered the tenants. She explained the chamber, the bottles, and the only way to escape. Femi was ready to leave. Mr. Bello struggled to understand. But Said refused. She asked why anyone would abandon a beautiful apartment for memories they could no longer remember. Nkiru answered, "That is exactly why the house is winning." As the third month ended, Nkiru called home. Her mother appeared on the screen, wearing a familiar headscarf. For one terrifying second, Nkiru could not remember who she was. Nkiru began to cry and asked her mother to keep talking. She studied every line on her face, afraid the house would choose her next. That night, Nkiru dreamed she was a sick child. Her mother sat beside her, wiping her forehead and singing softly. Then the dark doorway appeared. Nkiru held her mother's hand and begged the memory to stay. But the fingers slipped away. When she woke, the woman in the family photograph had become a stranger. Nkiru pulled the fire alarm and gathered everyone in the hallway. Holding fuel from the generator room, she threatened to destroy the building. Mr. Afalian warned that the memories might disappear forever. Then Mr. Bello spoke. "I cannot remember my wife's face," he said, "but I know she used to sing." He chose to leave. Femi followed him, then another tenant, and another. Said remained behind. Mr. Afalian reminded her of her beautiful apartment and comfortable life. But Said finally admitted that she could no longer hear her late mother's voice inside her mind. She dropped her key on the floor. "I'm leaving," she said. Nkiru was the final tenant at the gate. Mr. Afalian warned her that the city would remind her how cruel life could be. Nkiru placed the brass key in his hand. Then she answered, "I would rather struggle as myself than succeed as a stranger." She stepped outside. The gate closed behind her. The building began to shake. Windows rattled. Lights flashed. From beneath the ground came the sound of hundreds of bottles breaking. Golden memories poured from the building like fireflies. Mr. Bello remembered his wife. Femi recognized his sister. Sade remembered her mother's voice. And 3 glowing memories moved toward Nkiru. Nkiru remembered Chika's laughter. She remembered her graduation. And finally, she remembered her mother. By sunrise, the beautiful building had become an abandoned ruin. Months later, Nkiru found a smaller apartment. The paint was uneven. The electricity was not constant, but beside her bed stood a family photograph. She knew every face, and she remembered every name. Nothing in life is truly free. Sometimes the most dangerous price is not money. It is your peace, your identity, your relationships, or the memories that remind you who you are. A home should protect your memories. It should never consume them. Would you have remained in the apartment after losing your first memory, or would you have returned the key immediately? Share your answer in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to Twilight Tales of Africa for more modern African folktales, supernatural mysteries, and unforgettable moral stories. Turn on the notification bell so you do not miss our next tale. Thank you for joining us. Until we meet again beside the fire, remember, some prices are paid with more than money. Twilight Tales of Africa, stories whispered after sunset.